Learning electronics only on Boxside FM.
Experience life. Experience life.
All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. We are going to do a double person live stream. Hello, Jonas. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good. Can you sit a bit further from your webcam? Just a bit. Then we can see your cool brackets as well. Nice. Yes,
There we
perfect.
go. Can you not see it when I sit like this?
No, it's just like outside of the borders.
Oh, weird.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
doesn't matter.
we're all good.
Okay, so for those who are tuning in, if anyone tunes in, doesn't matter, because we are just going to do a live work stream, the workshop together today. So the main focus of today is that we want to work and think about our branding. So Kazusui, as you've seen on our website and from our conversations, we have multiple projects running. But as they are getting ready slowly to hit the market, we have to think about how do we actually put it all together. And so we will be doing a workshop that we will be facilitating ourselves today online. So if you have any ideas or suggestions, we'll be looking at the chat as well. And then besides that, then just feel free to jump in and participate as much as you want or can. I'm just gonna make sure that Jonas is visible. Okay. And can you say something again, Jonas?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm trying
Perfect.
to stay in frame.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay, so all good, up and running. So let's get maybe we should also do like our announcement. So officially we want to say something about some good news that we've had, but unfortunately we are still not at liberty to fully disclose everything because there is still supposed to be some press release. But all in all, I think what we can say is that we have won a grant from the city, no, the I guess the country of Belgium, Flanders,
It's
whatever.
our country, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
Vlaio is Flemish. Yeah, you're right.
Flemish, yeah. And now you already kind of half said what it was that we were not supposed to do. But so we got some runway money to speed up some ideas and some projects. So we'll be moving into next year. And also one of the ideas that we have is to do these weekly online sessions so we can actually like get people more and more involved on this and to make sure that we use everyone's mind as much as possible. So we'll be focusing on that as much as possible. And we'll have some more updates on that later, I guess, when the press release has been there. Yeah, I think that's it for introductions. Do you have anything else to introduce?
No, sounds good. Perfect summary. I'm looking forward to the workshop, the live workshop.
All right, good to hear. Okay, then let's go to the work screen. Okay, so I think everyone at home now sees our screens.
So for me, there is a slight delay on the YouTube stream, but I'm guessing you can see everything live, right? With what it looks like and everything.
Yeah, so I have my recording software, streaming software, that is like my live, and then you've got your live, and then we've got the live stream live. So the live stream is about 5-6 seconds delay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I just have the idea that sometimes your screen is freezing, and I think that's because of something I've done. Hold on. Okay, now you're unfrozen. Good. Okay, let's get started. So the idea is that we would do some thinking about our strategy, and especially in the branding. So the idea would be that we first do some high-level thinking about, okay, what are these options that we have? Not to then already make a decision, but then to just figure out, okay, so if these are the options, what are then the main unknowns, assumptions, and dependencies that we see? What for each option is then the advantage for us? What is the advantage for customers in that sense for choosing that way of branding? And this would just maybe be a way for us to kind of get some first thoughts out there. And then we have like a more classical branding exercise where we can kind of maybe choose which ones we want to do. Where it's just kind of thinking about who are we, where do we want to go, because ultimately it's kind of like this symbiosis between what do we want and what do customers want, or what do we believe, or what do customers believe. So I think we'll just dive in it.
Yeah.
Let me just put it in the chat.
So did you get this from anywhere, or did you make all of this yourself?
The second part, so this part is from a template from Miro,
Oh, yeah.
and then I made the top part. That's why the top part looks like shit compared to the rest.
Well, it has the branding. That's all we need.
Yeah. Just quickly adding to the YouTube chat. Okay, so let's start. So indeed, so what we have been thinking about is in very broad terms, the option one. Option one would then be that everything and anything is Kauzasui. So then that would be the main brand. And so underneath the Kauzasui brand, we would have both the software, Circular, we would have the fashion project, we would have the cosmetics project, and anything else that would come in the future. Meaning that there would just be, that Kauzasui is just like a lifestyle brand, where there's one web shop, so you can come to the Kauzasui web shop and you can say, okay, I want to have this soap and that thing, but I also want to subscribe to this t-shirt and that thing. So everything would just be in one environment, which of course will have some pitfalls, but that would be an option. And then it's like everything is one idea. And then unknown that I already could feel is then, is our B2B activity, such as the circular software, is that then also Kauzasui, or is it then like a different part of Kauzasui? To be discussed. Then the second option would be to say, okay, we have Kauzasui as a B2B or business venture studio. So we create sub-brands of Kauzasui that are linked to Kauzasui. So they will all have some Kauzasui-ish things to it. So each brand, sub-brand has its own name, and each sub-brand has a similar is Kauzasui style. So it would be mostly clear to people that it's part of Kauzasui, but it has its own web shop, it has its own environment. So in that sense, that it's it's more part of Kauzasui, but it's still a bit more independent. Then the third option, what we could do is that Kauzasui Studio is really just, that's the only Kauzasui there is, and the only branding that would remain Kauzasui-ish. And what we would do then is say, okay, we are purely in a venture studio, and everything what we produce, whether it be B2B software or B2C, fashion and cosmetics, everything has its total own branding and identity and web shop and everything. Even meaning that we could have multiple cosmetics brands, but they all have the same backend, for instance. So that will give us the most degrees of freedom. Is there a fourth option that we should also consider? Would you think, Jonas?
No, not really. The one thing that triggered me a little bit is, I think I sent a few days ago, I sent you another link from Mischief, and they kind of act as a studio, and then they consider their products as drops. They only last for a short time, so it's not a one-to-one mapping. But I think it's somewhere in between the option one and option two. Or if that's how you envision option two, then it can also just be option two, where it's very obvious that it's all from Kauzasui. And then every time we have something new, it gets dropped or launched as a project more than a real sub-brand.
Yeah.
But I think it's more semantics than really a fully different thing.
No, but it's an interesting point. I'm now in the shared screen for the live stream. I'm going through the Dead Startup Toys example.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
again show.
Love that one.
So the Mischiefs, this is a studio in New York. They're a small team, and basically they are hyping like very limited editions of either campaigns or products. So for instance, they've done like stuff for like Yeezy boots, and then they will just make something, and then they sell 1,000 of them, and then that's it. So it's very limited edition, so it's very hypeable. Just check it out if you're interested. Let's put it here in the comments.
So what do you think? Is that an option 4, or is that a tweaked option 2?
And how would you say it differs from option 2?
Good question. I think that depends on how we define sub-brands. As long as it's a big Kausasui banner with a small, let's say, circular sub-banner, then it could perfectly well fall under it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, we can keep that one broad, option 2 indeed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to get stuck in semantics.
No, true. Okay, then maybe let's just start with this. So what we could do is maybe to start with, they would just go through the different options. So let's start with each option here. So option 1, and then we go down vertically, and then we can put it there. And then I can put a timer here. So if you want to be are you okay with being green?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, that's good. All right. Good. And maybe before we start, also interesting to know is what is your gut feeling at the moment without doing the full deep dive?
I'm a little stuck in the sense that I like the idea of having like the Kausasui like full lifestyle brand because it could attract different types of people that kind of feel this whole post-consumerist utilitarian kind of like let's try to do something not bullshit but then actually like with nice aesthetics and nice designing, stuff like that. So I feel that there could be a market for that, and it could have an appeal and a stronger community feel if it would be one brand. Because if some people might be initially very interested in the cosmetics, but then they don't know that there's a fashion and something else behind it, then you would kind of miss that potential synergy. On the other hand, I also feel kind of like Mischief, indeed, like this idea of having like we are a studio and people know that we produce cool type of projects. But then the projects themselves, they have a full own identity. And also from a business point of view, like now with the cosmetics, if we would say we will make one brand that is for like young hipsters, and we make one brand that is for like young families. But the backend is basically the same, and it's just the packaging that is differently printed. But the whole logistics and everything is shared and the same. Then that way, also business-wise, having separate brands could be interesting. So then it's maybe more about how separate should they be. So I think that for me would be an ideal outcome of this top part of the session, is to kind of figure out, is it worth keeping Kausasui Connection as sub-brands, or would it be better that if you work with sub-brands, that they are completely separated from Kausasui? So I would be curious about that.
Good question. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we just add this card, make it bigger.
Yeah, I'll just start a timer, and then we can just oh no, it's a paid feature. Shit. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's
start counting. Just keep track of the count and write at the same time.
Yeah.
Multitasking.
Okay, I'll put on some background music. Softly for the listeners. Okay. Let's do this for like 2 minutes or so.
Yeah. So do you add a text box and then just type in it?
Yeah. Oh no, just on the post-its.
Oh, okay. feel like a lot of the things that I'm writing down are relevant for all of them. Because
you can just copy paste them to the other ones as well.
Yeah, true. Because we want to write down the assumptions and dependencies and unknowns for this setup specifically, not for Koza Sui as a...
Yeah, for the option one, so that everything is Koza Sui.
No.
Okay, I think I'm done.
Yeah. How much time do we have? I think once we get going, we can always come back, right?
Yeah. Okay. What are the biggest things that you feel here are critical?
Well, I think the good thing about this, or the things that I would think are good, so maybe I should separate these, but these are assumptions, is that we could have a very strong single story. It's very clear under which name we're going to promote everything, how we're going to build everything, what everything's going to look like, who the people are behind the name. You don't have to start from zero every time because you have this, you only have one name with, let's say, would it be fair to call them product lines or products or whatever? So that's easy enough. There is a lot of room for brand loyalty. And that is, of course, assuming that people like buying different products from the same brand. I think a lot of mine are very related to each other.
Yeah.
And then the second big topic is that it gets confusing, right? So you land on the Koza Sui page. What is Koza Sui? Oh, it's all of these things. Wait, do I even want a company that is all of these things? So I guess kind of the opposite of what's mentioned below. And then maybe in the middle is what we can actually do, what is feasible. But I think those are true for all of them. If we want to go this broad, is that we need expertise and marketing and everything for all these different categories. And maybe that's the least applicable to this one because the whole focus would be on Koza Sui and not necessarily on the fashion, on the circular, and so on. So we get more focus. What about you?
True. Yeah, good points. I think similar. I think like on a practical level, like it could get pretty messy with the subscriptions, and the front end system could be quite complex if indeed you like if you would have a subscription on fashion and then you would need to have in the same front end, you would need to be able to like say, hey, I have a rip in my shirt, I need to get it fixed. If you need to be able to do that detail of stuff in a front end system as being able to say, hey, I need to track where my sachet of this month of toothpaste went. It's going to be a lot of detail. So it's going to be, I don't know, it would be quite heavy, I think. Not impossible per se, but it would be just kind of, I don't know, could be all over the place. But maybe it's just a UI UX problem. I think towards the assumptions, it's indeed like the people who like our fashion concept will also like our cosmetics, or the reverse, that indeed that we might that we assume that these might be the same people, but we don't know. And also an assumption would be that if we have this strong general brand, that then also always the product design has to be that way. And that could also maybe be limiting, like if we would go into a different sector after this, like would we be limiting ourselves by taking this direction now? If everything has to adhere to very strong general Kazasui branding.
True.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting that when you talk about limiting, that it sounds like a negative, whereas for me, I see limiting more from our side as what is achievable, and it sounds like a good thing. So I think that's already an interesting dynamic.
Tension. Yeah. Yeah, true. And I mean, there are quite some interesting examples out there. I mean, like look at companies like Yamaha. Like they make pianos, they make motorcycles, they make it's like crazy. Like I mean, it is possible to have a strong presence in a market that has nothing to do with the market itself. I mean, Apple in that sense is, for instance, also just a very strong design language with multiple products in different segments. Although everything is, of course, consumer electronics, but yeah, still.
Yeah.
Kim?
Yeah. I think for me, the difference is that those are thousands of employees, and there's
Yeah,
the
true.
two of us.
Yeah, true.
Oh, damn.
Oh. Okay,
Sorry.
let's maybe move on down to the advantages. So what would be the advantages for Kazasui to pursue this?
Oh, so we drag those down.
Just no, just one, just so you have your color.
Oh, okay. Advantages. Okay. It's a bit faster.
Yeah, I don't know how deep indeed we want to go. I think it's just good to now work top of mind and not go too detailed.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to kickstart the discussion.
Yeah. So I guess.
Okay, you go first.
Yeah, so I guess indeed for the advantages, of course, indeed, we have a lower cost of branding, which is very practically. And I think also quite an interesting one would be to have a more diverse community, because if you would have people that know a lot about fashion only think about the fashion part or have only be involved in the cosmetics part, here we can actually create like more of an like ecosystem of knowledge around different topics. So I think in that sense, like kind of like, I mean, thinking from the community point of view, that if people all come together under Kazasui and there would be only like Kazasui live streams and not like a fashion live stream and a cosmetics live stream underneath their own brand and they're not interconnected, then we might miss out on some interesting synergies. And the disadvantage, like maybe kind of like the locked in, I think is correct, similar to my like product range limitation of like, if we would have one web shop and then like tomorrow we want to do something completely crazy, like a car, we want to create our own car as a service, then it would be very difficult to kind of like stretch that, you know, span. So yeah, it might be more of a future issue. And the next thing I was kind of like in the middle with the financial complexity, like in a way it would be easier, you could think, that if everything is just Kazasui and it's just one business on paper basically, and then everything we do is basically all, so we can separate things in business units so we kind of know what are the profits and losses, but we have our own, but it's just one balance sheet at the end. So in that sense, it could be good because we can indeed like internally invest. So that would be interesting. But then at the same time, it could also be very complex because then, if hypothetically we have a business unit that is losing money, then we need to have like a lot of internal debates about do we keep it alive, how long do we keep it alive, etc. So that could also cause a lot of tensions about resource allocation internally. So I don't know if it's good or bad, but either. What do you think?
Good point. Yeah, I think you've mentioned most of the things I wrote down as well as so. It's easy to understand, to brand as Koza Sui. If you have another product, I don't know, whatever other vertical we may want to launch into, you can pretty much copy paste the styling, the marketing, the email campaigns, the whatever, and just go with that. So that also gives you a lot of focus to really polish that one design language or communication style. But as you said, it has the other side as well that you're locked in. And if people don't like one of the things, they're probably not going to like any of the things. I'm also not sure if that's a bad thing, actually, because the opposite is also true. If they like one, well, not necessarily. Okay, I'll leave it at disadvantages. So I'd say a little less room to be creative and, well, prioritizing is, I think it's a bit about what you said with the internal tension, prioritizing all the things all the time. With then I suppose the same people is going to be tricky. So, and I think I'm still looking at it through the lens of bootstrapping. So let's say less than 5 or 10 people actually working on it. It gets a whole different story once you get to a certain scale and all of these potential products become actual products with actual clients. Then that's a whole different story. So I'm really looking at this exercise, as bootstrapping. What do we want to look like in the first year, 2 years?
Yeah, got it. I think it's you have to command Z once.
What did I do? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, good. Let's move on to the customer point of view. So just
It's good. And we are now talking about the end customer, right? So mainly B2C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Advantages.
Yeah, I guess this is it now. Ish. Yeah, good point.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so,
Go for it.
yeah, I think indeed, similar things indeed. I mean, the pros, the advantages would be to be part of this bigger community. So maybe also this feeling that when you move into emotion with customers, like it can be like a good thing to like really tap into somehow that they feel that they're becoming part of something bigger, and that effect will be more if Kazasui is one brand that does multiple things than if it's only the fashion or only the cosmetics. You have to command Z again. But then other than that, like then also the product range keeps expanding, so that could also be kind of a cool idea if you kind of buy into Kozasui. Like if we, like now we have like a separate subscription fee for the fashion, and the cosmetics is more pay as you go. But then it would be interesting if you would have like a Kozasui subscription, where you pay a basic fee for just being able to like see all the products and get access to the products or something. And then or then the promise would be that there would always be some like new stuff being added, so that could be like an interesting idea. And then disadvantages would be like just what I already said, like perhaps like a messy dashboard if you have a lot of different things coming together. And also like maybe for us, maybe for the customer, but if he sees that what he's paying for the fashion and what he's paying for the cosmetics and for whatever else in the future, then maybe cumulatively it will seem more if you have it in one overview than if you would have it in different web shops. So that might also be a thing.
Yeah, makes sense. I think
And you?
mine are very related as well. So the advantage is that it's simple to understand because one brand, multiple products. You like one thing, you buy hopefully the other things, and that's also related to this. Once you know and you are aligned with the company values, which I think for this Kozazui project is very important. You know they care about ecological products, about sustainability, about circularity. You don't have to research that every single time they come up with a new product. You know, it's Kozasui. These guys care, so I'll just add it to my subscription.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and these are actually all kind of the same, but differently worded. Yeah, the other side of that coin is also true. Who are these guys to sell all this non-related shit? Like you said with Yamaha, okay, those guys are huge, but I would think, well, do they have any expertise in any of the things they are selling? I like my fashion companies to be fashion companies, and my fashion and cosmetics. I guess that's something I'd go for. But if we decide to sell motorcycles, that's gonna be a bigger leap to take. Same goes for believability. And so as soon as you have one bad experience with, again, for example, maybe you bought the wrong Yamaha motorcycle and now you're never buying anything from Yamaha again, even though they probably are not very related.
Yeah. Yep. True. Makes sense. Okay. Let's move up to option 2. So this would be Kazasui being only a studio that produces like circular and sustainable consumer brands or just brands in general. Here, let's dive into, okay, so if we would do something like this, what would be our main unknowns, assumptions, and dependencies?
Yeah. So can you think of a comparable example? I'm thinking maybe that's the Google way of doing things, because you have Google Mail, Google, I don't know, Hangouts, Google everything.
Yeah.
It's still Google. Whereas I think the next one is more the Facebook way, where you have Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, but it's actually all Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's a good comparison. Darren joined us on the chat. Hey, Darren.
Hey. You send it out over email? Oh yeah, it was in the newsletter. True.
So what do you think about, so what we're talking about here is the, if we have Kazasui, then we've got like our software, this is B2B, then we've got fashion, cosmetics, and other things to come. So should it all be option one, everything is Kazasui, so it doesn't matter if it's the B2B or B2C part, everything is Kazasui and Kazasui brand? Or should it be that we have Kazasui as like an incubator or as a venture studio of anything circular and stuff like that? Where then all of the sub-brands, they kind of look like Kazasui, or they have Kazasui design elements or branding elements, but they are then still separate? Or should it be option 3, where Kazasui is like purely and only a studio, where we kind of like create different brands, and all of these brands have their own identity, web shops, and everything is fully, in that sense, separated from Kazasui, and in that sense have more freedom? They found it live through Instagram.
Okay, cool. I think a lot of the ones from the previous vertical also apply to this one, though. I'm going to...
June is still thinking about the question about the 3 options.
Are there 3 options?
The 3 options that we are working on now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the main advantage would be operational, I suppose. You could really point to an owner per stream, and it's, you do fashion, you do circular, you do cosmetics, and everything is clear, and the experience can be a bit tailored to each, even though there is still an overarching brand name. But that can also make it more difficult to work together, maybe, that everything becomes a silo, and maybe the left hand doesn't really know what the right hand is doing, and that becomes progressively worse as you go to the right, of course. With the third one, that's even more true. So I guess, yeah, because this one is a bit in the middle, it's going to have some of the advantages on the left, some of the advantages on the right, and the same for the disadvantages. But I like, in general, the Google style of bringing products into the world, but that's maybe because I like most Google products. I'd assume it'd be completely different if it was the other way around.
True.
What about you?
Yes, I think indeed the same. I mean, I think the limiting the brand design could be a good thing, because indeed we kind of like force ourselves to kind of not go like get too distracted. And I think the main hypothesis would be that people still cross-buy our products. But then also like a dependency or an assumption we have or unknown is the bad experience with one brand would then also mean that they don't buy into the other. So I'm kind of curious about that. Yeah, I think also it kind of depends on how far you go, because with the Google G Suite, it's all quite still connected. But like other Google ventures, they might have some Google ability about them, but they are still quite separate brands. Like they had this urban planning agency called Sidewalks or something like that. Like they had different things going on as well.
But I think they still mention that it's Google whatever
Yeah,
at all.
yeah,
Because
kind
there's
of like the
also
Google
Google
Glasses.
Fi, Google Glasses, Google Mobile Plans, Google, and the Google Suite is like a big chunk,
Yeah.
huge thing. Yeah, true.
Tony's suggestion on the chat was, is there a way to A/B test the value you create through options 1, 2, 3 of this Kazasui brand architecture?
Phew, good question. If we had a team of 50 marketeers, I'd say yes. With the two of us, I don't know. To me, this is just a decision but I'm the pragmatic side of going one step at a time. So I just take a decision, and if it doesn't work, then we'll go with another one in a year or in 2 years. So yeah, that's my take. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's indeed something. I mean, to A/B test the whole structure, I mean, there would be a lot of testing because it's basically ABC testing, and then within the ABC, the like different variations of it. So it would be just a lot of work indeed. I mean, we could do A/B testing for if you would decide to go with option 2 or 3, or for instance, we could actually A/B test a little bit of like how Kazasui should it be, but other than that,
Exactly. I think after this hour, we hopefully have enough insights, or we've actually thought about it a bit more deeply, and we can make some sort of informed decision.
yeah. Okay, let's move towards the advantages of having the Kazasui sub-brands.
Well, could copy all of them from the left. Steun also in the Miro.
Yeah, there's a viewer's link now in the chat.
Cool. Qualitative, not quantitative testing. What does that mean? I'm not a marketing expert. So just ask a few people what they think, or a few experts, I guess.
Tune is saying, so instead of the qualitative, not quantitative, that we could do some interviews with mockups instead of running ads and landing pages. Guess that makes sense.
True. Wouldn't have to take too much work. Guess we need some designs for each of them. Because wireframes wouldn't really translate, I guess, for branding.
So we would have to, yes. I mean, yeah, I guess it's better than indeed designing full landing pages and stuff.
Yeah, true.
Interesting. Do you have any other ideas there?
I find it hard to add advantages and disadvantages here. It feels like everything is gonna end in ish or more or less. It's gonna be more than the left and less than the right, and somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Maybe that's good, eh? Gives us wiggle room.
True. Okay. Yeah, I guess here just to summarize, I think it makes sense. So indeed, advantages are that there is still some cross-selling and there is still some saving on branding costs, but maybe not so much. Indeed, it's the best of both worlds. We can make a decision, so we'll do this, or we can make a decision, so we do this. It's indeed kind of like this feeling of where do we stand? It's harder to pull off with a small team, maybe. Because indeed it puts more pressure, more tension on the different brands and how much we spend on each brand and branding. I think also the main disadvantage is that if we go full brand focus option 1, we can choose one direction to go and then like fully focus on that niche or niche range. But if we have this middle option, then it just kind of stays in this maybe we can actually like wiggle it a bit more towards certain niches. But compared to the being fully autonomous, then we can really say like, okay, this part of the cosmetics brand is going to be for this totally different niche, then this fashion is going to be for this totally different niche. So it's still a bit limited.
Yeah, exactly. Good summary.
Somebody working in your kitchen.
Oh, can you hear it? Okay.
A little bit, yeah. Okay.
I'll try to mute myself when I'm not talking.
It's okay, that's good. Okay, customer advantages and disadvantages.
All right. I think for me, the main advantages is that you are a bit sheltered from all the marketing for all of the products and just getting blasted by a lot of things you don't care about. But you can still learn about new products through the existing ones. That's a bit how it is for me when I'm now stuck on the Google example, so I'm gonna just run with it.
Yeah.
If I see something that Google has done, I'm more likely to click on it, but I'm not blasted by every single one of their brands every day by their newsletter or whatever. And it's a bit clearer what their value proposition is because they all have their own little website or page or something. But it is maybe a little less seamless. Yeah, because you still have to go through those pages, different URLs, different experiences, and it's a bit more disconnected. What about you?
Yeah, I think same. I mean, in a way, it could be less confusing because indeed, like you have a separate web page or web shop, so it's just like more convenient. But in general, maybe there's less this feeling of I'm part of this Kazasui community. Maybe it even feels less authentic in that way as well. Maybe it feels just like we're trying to sell more, do more, and they kind of feel like, stick to one thing. Then and also maybe like just like you said, like the cross-selling can also maybe almost feel hostile. Like if indeed in the example of Google, if every single day they would be sending stuff, maybe you'd just feel kind of like well, calm down. So
Yep, exactly. Agreed. Okay, third one.
yeah, let's go. So Turn is saying in the chat that his gut feel is that he thinks that Kazasui Studio has the most benefits. So I guess that's option 2, as you'll create a funnel in which you can guide true fans deeper down the Kazasui rabbit hole, but still have the ability to target niche markets without giving them the feeling that they're entering a religious community. The barrier to enter would be lower, higher chance of impulse purchases eventually, converting percentages of those impulse purchases into the full picture. Great job, guys. Looking forward to where this is going to go. Gonna run for my PCR test. Good luck, Turn. Have fun at your nose stabbing event.
And thanks for the input. That's really
Good.
valuable. Very good one.
Grazie.
Yep. Right. So for me, I think I've wrote. Oh, sorry. Are you still going?
Go ahead.
So for me, these are more the assumptions. Is that we assume in this third setup that the target audience for each vertical is completely different, which I mean there's probably some truth there, but it depends on if they're after. If our I'm structuring my thoughts here. If our target audience is an audience that values lifestyle brands, then I don't think they'll care. If we're just targeting a specific audience per vertical, then yes, they are going to be completely vertical. So that then is very linked to how we position ourselves in the market. And that is assuming that people want separate brands for separate things. I think the big one here is that we actually have the time, the money, the know-how, the energy, the network to do this, because it is actually in my eyes, but that's how I view it. It is 4, 5, 6 different companies, even though they are under the same banner. Yeah, it's more of the Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook. They're totally different and independent, and will need more help and more industry experience and expertise.
Yeah, I think these are very good points indeed. I mean, there's definitely, obvious advantages to this, but indeed, we are then assuming that for customers it is important enough to have that separate branding to speak to them, that the market is big enough for different brands in that sense as well, we also assume that it is not important for customers to know that it is part of Kazasui, which I think should be, unless you do it indeed more in this mischief fashion where if you look at the website, it doesn't necessarily say mischief everywhere, but you kind of see the style and you do kind of see it probably somewhere in the footer or somewhere. So I guess agreed.
Yep, true. And I don't actually know, do they communicate out of the Mischief brand, or do you get a random looking email?
You get it, I don't know if they still do, but you used to just get a SMS. So you have to subscribe to a old school text.
Yeah, that's
Hipsters.
hipster on a whole new level. Always amazes me. Okay, cool. Advantages.
Yep.
Disadvantages.
Also something in general I was just thinking about that could have been maybe like a fourth option, maybe it could be connected to this one, but that is the idea that as now what we are doing is that now with cosmetics or with fashion, we create this B2C brand that kind of shows what we can do with a circular type system. So then we can also sell other competitors in the market this type of software and support for their circular transition. But in that way, we could also say that especially with the cosmetics, because that's really just a 90% branding, because the product is just quite straightforward. But then you could also say that business-wise for us, it could be interesting to say, we just create one simple, very outspoken brand, but then we actually open up the same system for other brands. So we basically create this. I don't know, it's kind of like a Shopify for cosmetics companies that want to kind of use our powders, and then they can just basically just online add their logos and whatever, and then everything else is taken care of. So they can all target their own niche and they can all do their own marketing and branding and whatever they need, but the only thing they have to do is use our infrastructure basically.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, and then I guess it all depends on how fast can you churn out these demos or new kind of pages and verticals.
Yeah.
If the main goal would be to use them as a demo or as a sample, then indeed, yeah, that's very good. Very good approach.
Okay, yeah, I think this makes sense. Indeed, yeah, just trying to add more, but I don't see where I could add more now.
Yeah, I think, I was writing this one as you were saying it, the demos or the samples for circular.
I think it still would be more fun because we can create more crazy brands, more out there things, and just it could be more experimental. Whereas if everything has to fit under Kazasui, we always have this focus thing that we need.
Yeah, true.
So,
True.
Sorry, okay, you were saying.
No, I wasn't really saying anything. I think this is a lot. Well, I think you could start with 1 or 2 and then transition to 2 or 3. but I think it's very tricky to start with one. If you with three, sorry, if you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
if it's let's say a company less than 20 people, one or two makes sense. Once you get to a certain volume of customers or employees, then two or three makes more sense. No, I don't see personally three working as a starting point.
No, true. I mean, so that would, I mean, that's the whole idea as well. I mean, that because it would mean that when we start with the cosmetics, that instead of making a Kausasui branded cosmetics brand, that we just look at, okay, so which market do we feel has the biggest willingness to buy at this moment already? And then whatever they need, that will be the brand. And then we just kind of forget about the whole Kausasui. Like, and then that way it would be even better bootstraps, despite the fact that it will cost more for branding, but then
Yeah, yeah. And you miss a lot of because then we launch a brand and we say, look at us work here, and then suddenly we have these circles around our heads, and they're like, what's going on there?
weirdos.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the customer advantages and disadvantages, and then we can take a big picture discussion.
Sounds good. Okay, I think there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think here for the advantages, like of course it could be like that it has a stronger coolness factor, that it speaks more to me or in niche, that because it's more tailored, so they will have more of this fact. And of course, compared to like a more complicated system, it would have a very simple, straightforward web shop. The disadvantages, like I think for me the main thing would also be like the if it seems hype-y because it's made to sell quickly, it's made to get traction quickly, then it can also feel a bit drop ship-ish. It can also feel quite unsustainable in that way. So I think in that sense it could also like it could be like a very quick uptake, but then suddenly like a quick decrease. What do you think?
Exactly. Yeah, agreed. That's a very good one. I hadn't even considered that. I think I mainly put points you already mentioned, but yeah, this is a disadvantage for Kausasui as well, not just the customer, but they may not find out about other products at all. Same with, yeah, I can imagine that when we do communication or you do press releases or you do, some form of contact, maybe you want to talk about the more broad company, which is Kozasui, and everybody will be like, what the fuck is Kozasui? I've never heard of this. I've heard of Circular or of CSRN, but not Kozasui. May get targeted multiple times for multiple products, even though we already know that they may like all of them. But it is, of course, more hyper-specific, and they do not need to buy into the brand. I think if you put a lot of products on the same page, then you're indirectly asking the customer to buy into the whole brand or not buy anything at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Okay, maybe then as a last exercise, what we can do is here on the bottom left, I've got some dots. So 10 dots for each of us. I don't know if you prefer yellow or red. But then the idea would be that we look at the different arguments here. So it can be both the advantages or disadvantages, but that we kind of like try to figure out, okay, so what do we think are the most crucial things here? So the most crucial advantages or most crucial disadvantages. And then we can see, do we see like a certain pattern? Do we see like that? We see that all of the advantages are being chosen at one of the options compared to the other. Or that if indeed we kind of feel that one of them has very strong disadvantages, that maybe we can then dismiss one as well. So let's do that for a few seconds and then see what happens.
How do I bring them to the foreground?
That's home.
Quite sure.
Or just copy paste them is also possible. Then.
Ah. Yes.
Oh fuck.
I need to read all the shortcut keys sometime. Isn't 10 a bit much, don't you think?
Yeah. I guess just the most important ones.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I think pretty much good.
Okay. So I see mostly indeed 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, the most have been posted here on the on option 3, but they also have the most on the negative side.
I wanted to emphasize that
Yeah.
how important I believe that one is.
Yeah. So I think indeed, like the main thing is that it has maybe stronger and more advantages compared to the disadvantages. But the disadvantages are also quite strong indeed. That it might be more fun, but it also can bring disadvantages. I think also for me, if I think out loud, just as a reflection, that we could always start with the middle, so the option 2, and then like so we start with like the sub brands of Kazasui, and then with the sub brands of Kazasui we like start the business, and then like once we've got the ball rolling and everything is up and running, then we can always move to like actually going back into option C or 3, where we then actually like take that step to say, okay, we go from we have our Kazasui brands that are underneath the Kazasui brand ish, but then we can actually create our own spin-offs when we feel that there's a very strong niche that is underserved, then we just go for it, but then only if we already have the basic infrastructure ready. So I think in that sense, I actually, if I now look at these options, I feel still quite secure about option 2, because I feel that here, maybe in the disadvantages, maybe here I would also like make it also add here some disadvantage about the web shop being just kind of like all over the place, and like that it I think we can still find a way to show very clearly on the Kazasui page that we have different brands, different products, but I think it's just too much of an effort to put everything into one thing. That's how I feel. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that more or less aligns with me. I think the third one, I've said it multiple times, is the deal breaker for me. It's just the small size of the team. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea per se, but to start with, it sounds like starting anything as a mountain and trying to start this is trying to, cross the whole Andes in a day.
Yeah.
Just don't. It's also, for me, I see this as a marathon and not a sprint, and I think you just this is the way to get burnt out, to me.
Yeah.
It is indeed a lot more fun, and it's gonna be a candle that shines bright, but yeah, I'm not sure we can keep it burning. And then for the first two, I'm not too biased towards either. My gut feeling just says the first one, and for the same reasons that I already mentioned, is that the second one is more ambitious, but maybe I can be a bit more ambitious there. It all depends on how you fill in, of course, the sub brands. Is that if you look at the Kazasui website at the moment, under which category would you put this?
Well, it's kind of like what we did with the circular, I guess, to some extent. That it's, I mean, it still has like the brackets and it's still part of the general brand, but then it could have its own like it could have its own design language a bit more.
No, you're right. Yeah, I think it can be a good middle ground. It's just to be seen how it's gonna manifest. I think it's not the big advantage for me on the left side is this being part of a bigger community. Like we do with this call, people join the calls. They're here for Kazasui. They're not here for fashion or for circular or something else. So I mean, this one here. And I really believe in having those first 100 super loyal and invested community members / customers, and then maybe going to phase 2 here. Yeah, I think maybe it's a little less coherent in 2, but yeah, again, it depends. Devil is in the detail. All depends.
Yeah, because indeed we could still keep like a Kazasui community alive. That would still overarch all of the different disciplines. But then just purely in the web shop, we just separated, for instance, like in that way we could still, they can still all be connected, but in, okay. Yeah, I think this was a useful way to kind of like put the whatever was in our minds on paper. And I think it's indeed like somewhere now between 1 and 2. But I think that's also something that we will talk to with our branding partners in the next while to kind of figure out. But then at least we've got some output to show to them.
Exactly. I think, yeah, like the input that Teun shared, people that actually have done this stuff before and they have a clear vision on it. that can help us break the knoop doorhakken.
The shoot the bullet through the church.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And also, I think maybe in the next exercise, I think we already had it planned sometime. If we have the personas and we know exactly who we're going after, that can influence each other. If we know, okay, these people really like singular brands, then we can go for option 1. No, they like the more sub-brands and subcultures, then maybe we go for 2. Hey, just a thought.
Yeah, it's kind of also what Tim said. Like, if we're at that stage, we can also do quite some easy interviews with some people in those target markets and say, like, what appeals to you more, what makes more sense to you, and try to get it clear through that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, I really like this. Very insightful and helped us forward. At least eliminate one of the 3. Or at least for me, it's eliminated. I don't know if it is for you. But...
Yeah, I mean, it's in some degrees you can even see it as an evolution. We start with option 1, which is now everything is Gazasui, basically. But then once we get the first fashion and cosmetics lines up and running, then it will kind of like start. It's kind of like Circular has its own website now. Then also maybe fashion and cosmetics will get its own website just for the sake of simplicity. And from there on, like we start to get things rolling. And once things are rolling, then maybe we even roll into option 3 where we say, okay, we're going to just start other different front ends of the same backend system, and we see.
Yep.
No need to decide. Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks for joining.
Super. Yeah.
Okay. Also, for those at home who are watching this either live or not or later, I think we'll try to do this every Thursday or every other Thursday. So see you soon. Teun, Teun, also thank you, but mostly Jonas, thank you for joining, and I think I'm gonna switch to the outro screen.
All right. Thanks for coaching us, Maarten, and all the prep.
Of course, no problem. Okay. Then everyone, see you soon. I think I'm gonna hit the afsluiten button now. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.